So good morning and welcome to the MitID migration webinar, this November edition from Signicat. We hope that you have your coffee or morning tea ready and able to join us for the next 30 minutes or so, while today's panelist will take you through some topics. And as always, I am joined by Lars Møller Christensen, our country product manager, and he will tell you a little bit about what's happened since the last webinar and give you an update on the single sign-on. Then we have Helge Lund Kolstad from Trondheim, our customer success manager, who most of you already also know, and he will give you an update on the PID to UUID and also give you some examples of that process. And then we have a newcomer to the panel. Joining us today is Nina Mathisen, our development relation manager, who will tell you exciting news about an upcoming event that we have in the Copenhagen office in a short while, and more about that towards the end. And as always, my name is Henrik Hansen, and I have the pleasure of moderating these guys, making sure that we stay on time and on track today. So just for the very few newcomers who don't know Signicat as well, we are building a trusted digital world. Very bold statement, but we actually mean that seriously. We are rooted in the leading identity regions of the European continent, especially in the Nordics, but as you can see, also in a lot of other places. We have about 350 identity experts sitting around in the salmon-colored pink pins. And yeah, we offer you the most comprehensive eID coverage that you can get in Europe. Especially in the Nordics, we enable more than 26 million Nordic citizens the ability for them to use their electronic IDs on a daily basis. Most of them use it about 4 times a week, and that's actually more than about 90% of the population of all those more than 15 years of age. So we pride ourselves in supporting the full digital identity lifecycle, meaning that we can support you in the identity proving of an individual or an organization. We can handle the recurring authentications and any signing of consent documents or agreements and contracts, and anything that basically can be put into paper, obviously can be put into digital as well. And that means that we bring trust and security together, not just the customer's trust, but also the technology and security that goes along with that. And in total, that then becomes Signicat. And for today's purpose, that becomes focused around MitID. And for this MitID webinar, we have an agenda, as I initially mentioned. We have what happened since the last webinar and the MitID SSO news on that. Then we have Helge coming up with the UUID and PID. We have Nina talking about a hackathon, and now I actually revealed what the event is. And towards the end, of course, as always, we will take your questions and hopefully provide you with some answers. But for now, let's hand over the microphone to Lars and hear what has happened since the last time we were together.
Thank you, Henrik. And good morning, everybody. I have prepared a couple of slides here. First of all, it's really exciting to see that all the communication around MitID and that the infrastructure is lifting off from a long time of work. We are beginning, as a broker, we are beginning to receive statistics, information on MitID, and especially the migration numbers we are following very interestingly. So the numbers per week of end users migrated from MitID to MitID, we have received those for 2 weeks. And two weeks ago, in the autumn holiday, it was there was 66,016 migrated, not a lot. And last week, the number was 109,000, so it's taking off, and excited to see this week's numbers and going forward. The original plan was, or estimate was about 1 million, 1.2 million by December. So we're excited to see if those numbers are still valid. We haven't heard anything else, so it's probably most of all depending on the banks initiating their migration flows, where the original numbers said around 40,000 identities from MitID to MitID per day. So we will get back with more or share more statistics with you as long as we get them. But it seems that we are on the right track here. Another thing happened since last webinar. I think we shared this slide with you on the MitID core release calendar. The release 5 was about to be released last time when we had this webinar, and there was a few service provider related information or parts of that release. One of them was the MitID or the service provider logo in the MitID app, which is now in place, and you can get that arranged via the onboarding manager or the customer success manager. It was also announced that with release 5, the MitID core, they had removed the push notification of all authentications, and you probably heard a lot of noise around that during the last week in the media. So when you type in your username and you say next, there will be no push notification sent to your phone. You will have to, as an end user, you will have to find the MitID app and launch it yourself, and then swipe for to approve the action that you are performing. You can argue back and forth on that, but it was claimed from the MitID core that it was primarily due to two things. One is that you can have multiple users, for instance, on a tablet, an iPad, multiple users using the same MitID app. And the other is security, and I guess we can argue a bit on that as well. Another one is the last one. There is the blocking of simultaneous transactions, either if you do from two devices yourself, two MitID transactions, or somebody is trying to hijack your transaction, and it will then result in two MitID transactions. They will both be blocked, and then there will be a delay before you can retry. So a security measure put in place, and we will have to see the effect of that one. But this is all history and has been in production for a while. Yesterday, release 6 was ready in the MitID core pre-production system, which we as a broker, of course, have access to. There's not much service provider related content in the release 6. It is primarily bug fixes and maturation of the whole system. Some billing interfaces has been worked on. And then the level of assurance high, which is not fully supported in the existing version of the MitID, is also going through a revision and has been launched here at release 6. So not much for you to take action on, really. Yes, next one, please. Yeah, as I mentioned, there has been a lot of noise in the media last week, especially this weekend, with reveals and statements from security experts that MitID is not secure and stuff like that. So a lot of interviews around social engineering and stuff like that, and it is a difficult challenge we face here. We have seen a lot of phishing sites popping up. We as a broker, we also get statistics or digitalizeringsstyrelsen, and the banks are sharing information they discover with their monitoring systems. So a lot of phishing sites are popping up. We have also seen spoofing of MitID support phone numbers where the attackers try to convince end users to let them into, for instance, the MitID self-service universe and try to take over their identity. So a lot of things are going on, but we also feel that there's a lot of fast reactions from digitaliseringsstyrelsen and the banks. They are blocking or taking down these phishing sites more or less as soon they are discovering them. And I think it's important again to remember that this is not only a government-driven infrastructure. The banks are fully supporting it, and we all know that they're even more interesting in reducing fraud and identity theft as the digitaliseringsstyrelsen or the government-driven part of it. So I think we are just seeing a very natural launch of a new, very, very important infrastructure and changes to an old, well-known MitID infrastructure. And everybody has to understand somehow that we are moving to a new system or new infrastructure. We had one hot fix based on the first media wave. There was implemented one hotfix to MitID self-service, trying to minimize or avoid taking over an identity if you get access to the MitID self-service. So I think it seems that things are finding the right level and will really a lot of security breaches here. So as I mentioned, this is a balance between security and user experience, and to get it all right. And of course, the investment in the infrastructure, the money part of it also has some part to say or role to play in this respect. For those of you who didn't get the full story from the medias, it is about that in MitID you don't have a password, you only have your username, whereas in MitID you both had your username and password. So in MitID, the recommendation goes to inform all end users that your username, user ID in MitID is sensitive, because if you can guess a user ID, you can initiate a MitID transaction, and if you then, as with social engineering, can get the end user to act on the request that or the MitID action you have put up or set up as a intruder, then you will be able to get to use the MitID transaction. But still, it requires the end user to perform the transaction, and that's the part of where you have to be educated and know that you shouldn't react on something that you haven't initiated yourself, and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of campaigns, information campaigns will come and take care of that part of the challenges we see here. Yeah. The next one here is some information on the MitID single sign-on. We have mentioned that a couple of times when we have displayed our service, MitID services offering with the basic services, making it easy to go from MitID to MitID in the bottom, and then the add-ons on the top of that with the graphical profiles, the CPR match, the subdomains, and stuff like that. Single sign-on, we have communicated that we are going to launch that second half 21, and we are in the middle of that, or close to. So we are working on that, and we'll release that before end of year. And I just want to share some of the initial information with you around that one. So there are several ways you can operate with MitID or with single sign-on in MitID. the full single sign-on with both login, single logout, and you can jump back and forth between service providers. That's one part of the product, but in the first phase, we will support what we call a one-way SSO. It's based on a consent base, so you give consent to the service provider you're logged in with MitID to transfer your MitID session to another service provider. And of course, this is to optimize the user experience. So we have the two examples here. We have the service provider A, and we have the service provider B, Super Clinic, and you want MitID session will be active at the service provider B. If you take the next slide, Henrik. Of MitID SSO, which is called control transfer of authentication. I know that some of the larger portals with a lot of interests or ecosystem with service providers will also be or is using this control transfer of authentication as a one-way single sign-on instead of pensionsinfo is one example. But we will, if you're interested in more information around this, please contact your Signicat contact person. It could be the sales person that you normally work with, or the onboarding manager, or book a consulting MitID consulting meeting. Then we will discuss with you what the possibilities are and how you set this up. Yeah, I think that was it for me.
Very good, Lars. And coming back to your security measures, I think we should all just remember the old wise words from the Hill Street Blues. Let's be careful out there. And yeah, on to our next topic. Helge from our Trondheim office will take you through the UUID and PID, how to get by that. And yeah, over to you, Helge.
Thank you, Henrik. All right, so if I can have the first slide. You probably, many of you probably know this challenge. You have a customer registered in your database. And since your compliancy burden is much greater with CPR, you have them indexed by PIN number from MitID. Now, what to do once they are migrated to MitID, because that uses a unique identifier called UUID. It's completely different from PID, and it's not possible to infer the one from the other. How do you migrate those customers in the easiest possible way without requiring them to authenticate again with MitID once you have registered a new unknown MitID login? Well, we have that covered, because there is now in the works a new CPR to PIN lookup. This is different from what was in MitID, which was the other way around. If you had a PIN number and a CPR number, you could match them and tell that they belong to the same person. But provided that you have a CPR number, you can look up the PIN number of that person, because obviously the PIN number is less sensitive. So what we do is we perform a regular MitID transaction with CPR number lookup, we perform the CPR to PIN lookup, and we will return the PIN number from MitID in the response. So in the response from MitID, we will not only disclose that person's UUID number, but also that person's PIN number from MitID if it exists. You don't need a separate MitID agreement to have this feature. It is included in the CPR match add-on, which we offer. And but it will have to be activated upon request, so it's not automatic. But if you ask for it, you can have it, provided you have the CPR match add-on. And I also have an example that I could show you. This is a sample user info response from pre-production, mind you. This test user has authenticated with MitID, and will receive the and has received the standard claims available from MitID, including the UUID number there, which you can see on the left-hand side. But as you can see from the right-hand side there, you also get the MitID.nemid_PID claim, which is a PID number from MitID. So it's quite easy. That's pretty much all there is to say about that.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Helge, and hopefully that brings some clarification to a question that we know has been on many people's lips over the last couple of months, finding out that this is actually a necessity if you have stored the CPR number as your main key previously. So our next point on the agenda, and actually the final point according to schedule, is for Nina Mathisen to tell you about our exciting and upcoming hackathon. And Nina, over to you.
Thank you, Henrik. So yeah, thanks for having me here. Let's click the next, let's click it one more time. Yes, so at the 11th of November, here in Copenhagen, we have this MitID Hackathon going on, and it is completely free. It is completely open to you, whether you are a customer today, whether you are not a customer yet. So this is for your developers. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what it is and why we're hosting it and what you can get out of it. So next one, please. Yeah, what we have done here is we have invited our software engineers who work with this every single day down to Copenhagen, and we have invited you into the same room. And the point here, the purpose here is for your developers, whether you just need to integrate your existing, update your existing integration, or you need to make an entirely new one, to be able to do so in an environment where you have access to these ID experts and software engineers. So we've also created a fresh new batch of use cases and code samples that you won't find in our documentation, but which we will make available during the hackathon. And I think another aspect which, through conversation with you guys, actually, I've heard that would be interesting for you, is actually just the opportunity to talk to other developers from other companies who are maybe actually doing the exactly same integration, but where there is no natural contact today. So it's much more efficient if you can do it together and just have it done within a day. So finally, of course, it wouldn't be a true hackathon if there wasn't some kind of food and beer available to help you think better. So we will of course provide that as well. Yeah. So just to quickly go through the agenda, we will start off by just introducing the topic, and we will also have our main software engineer, Axel Kvistad, give an introduction to the topic from a developer point of view. What do you need to know about MitID? And after that, we will have a discussion with the group about what your use cases are. And based on that, and also based on some information we get beforehand, we will assign you into groups where you are working with people who have a similar use case to yourself, and where you will have help from one of our experts in your given group. So yes, as it says here, we will divide into groups and start coding. And really what's left for you to do is to show this to your developers in your company and ask them if this would be useful for them. And after this webinar is finished, you will receive an email from us with the Eventbrite link. So just show that to your developers, see if they're interested, and they can still sign up. If you have any questions, just post them below. I don't think I've gotten any questions. Oh.
No, probably not yet. Maybe people are just digesting the great idea that you've come up with, Nina. So we'll see. We already have a lot of interested parties joining us, but still room for a few more. So as always, towards the end of a webinar, we will guide you towards our collaterals, where you can find information in the updated developer pages, our MitID resources, of course, the MitID blog. You can experience for yourself with the MitID demo solution available. And of course, also take a look at the MitID e-guide that is published there. And finally, bringing to your attention here, the direct link for signing up for the MitID Hackathon, which will also, as Nina mentioned, be sent to you afterwards. So now, with a couple of minutes left, as always, we will take your questions. And since I'm sharing my screen, I am relying on the good people on the other side of the screen to come up with any questions that has been raised during the webinar. And Lars, you have the control.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here. First one is for Helge. You return the PID if it exists. Could you elaborate on when it might not exist?
It might not exist if that person has no MitID user. It's not very common, and you might likely not encounter it at all. But it might be somebody who has only recently come of age, for example, and gets immediately enrolled into the MitID scheme, or somebody who has recently immigrated and is immediately enrolled into the MitID scheme and not MitID, for example. And once MitID is switched off in June, that service, that lookup service, will obviously go down with it, and you will no longer receive the PID number. So that's what I mean by if it exists.
Yeah, thank you, Helge. Next one is, of course, a relevant one. When do you expect the PID, this service, MitID to PID, to be available in production?
Okay, I can take that one as well. It's currently in development, and the goal is to have it in production in the middle of this month. I'm afraid I can't give an exact date, but if everything goes according to plan, then it'll be out in the middle of this month.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we got. So
okay,
and it's time to round up, I guess.
Yep. So if you still haven't found your MitID broker, then feel free to go into our web pages and find the book a MitID migration consultant form, fill it out, and we'll be in contact with you as soon as possible. Hopefully, of course, to get you on board, or just explain how Signicat is doing MitID services. So I hope that you enjoyed this half hour with us as much as we did, and we look forward to seeing you again some date in December. Date will be published very soon. And so for now, from everyone here at the Signicat, thank you for joining us, and we wish you all a happy day.